Hi, everybody. Dr. Unati here. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm looking forward to having this conversation with all of you. Today, I have a special guest. As you know, we're going to be starting these conversations every week. Saturday, we'll be doing 1 hour sessions with different mental health professionals, and I'll be bringing different people from all walks of life. So it's going to be fun. People of African descent will be coming to teach us everything we want to know about mental health or Black culture. Today, without wasting our time, I have an amazing lady. She's a friend, she's a colleague, Dr. Hokehe Ifyong. She is an American Nigerian by descent, but otherwise, she is basically an Pan-Africanist. Let me rather put it that way. She's actually a board-certified pediatrician. She has many hats. She's a mom to 3 beautiful kids. Of course, she's a wife, and she runs few programs. I want to actually read them to you guys so that you can see the beautiful work this lady is doing. She's basically a certified brain health coach on top of being a board certified pediatrician, wife and mother to 3 beautiful lovelies, passionate about inspiring and equipping her audiences with strategies to heal from adverse childhood events and develop a love for their brain so they can transform their lives and also the lives of their children. She advocates for children in foster care and is the founder of Kids of Hope, a 501c3 organization that shares love, hope, and dignity by providing children going into foster care with bags filled with comfort and essential items. She helps companies and agencies understand the effects of adverse childhood events on worker performance and how they can elevate their most valuable resource, which is people. Thank you so much, Dr. Hey. I'm so grateful you are here.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Can you hear me?
I can very well. Can you hear me?
Awesome. So we have people on already. So we're going to dive into our topic today, guys. Our topic is adverse childhood events or experiences. Dr. Ifyong is very experienced in this field. As you can hear, she's a pediatrician. She deals with kids every day, and of course, even kids that even need more needs foster care. So today we're going to have this exchange of discussion. You pop in your questions. We're going to be addressing them just towards the end of our discussion. Like I said, it's an hour discussion, just close to maybe 20 to 8. We're going to address 20 minutes, your questions. So today, Dr. H, I always call her Dr. H. Tell us more about yourself and what you've been up to.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Natty. So, once I discovered what adverse childhood experiences are, it completely changed the way I look at my practice, the way I look at children, and the way I mean, it changed I look at the world because it's no longer why are people acting the way they're acting. It's now a question of what happened to them. So, adverse childhood experiences are experiences we go through as children that can literally make changes to the way our brains function, the way our hormone systems function, the way basically our life runs. Because as we know, if our brains are affected, then that's our control center. So everything else is affected. So I like Dr. Nati said, I run a nonprofit for foster kids. These are kids that are taken away from their parents because of adverse childhood events, right? So I'll tell you what those are. So those are emotional abuse. So if you have been hurt by, being spoken down to as a child, being told that your feelings or your thoughts are irrelevant, that's considered emotional abuse. Emotional neglect, physical abuse, physical neglect. So that's when you're not properly cared for or your needs are not completely met. When living in a home with a parent that has been put in jail, that's an adverse childhood experience because, as you know, we do really well when we have a strong family unit. Living in a home that where you've experienced parents fighting or intimate partner violence, where they're fighting in front of the kids, and so this is what the child grows up knowing. all of those things create a sense of
insecurity
in the child. And
absolutely.
yes, absolutely. Substance abuse in the home, mental illness in the home that's been untreated, or even if it's treated and children are witnessing all of that. Parental separation or divorce, that's an ace. Um, Also, racism. I mean,
Yeah,
it's an ace too because
absolutely.
children are made to feel like they are different and they have experiences, even if it's psychological. That goes back to psychological.
Absolutely.
I mean, and emotional. All of these things that happen to us as children can make changes in the way our bodies work. And if we don't address them, now that's when you start to see behaviors, you see chronic health issues show up. So in the early 90s, there was a study done in the United States with the CDC, and they looked at 17,000 individuals, middle class Americans, and backgrounds and all of that. And basically, they were looking to see what happens. Like, is there a link between what happens to you as a child and health outcomes? And so what they found was really shocking to them. They first of all they found that adverse childhood experiences are extremely common. I mean, it can happen to anybody.
Yes.
And also that the more adverse childhood experiences you have, the higher your risk for things like you're 12 times as likely to kill yourself, likely to be depressed. You are more than three times likely to have chronic health issues like chronic heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, all of those things that show up in that's increasing in our society, and
Absolutely.
and also if you have six or more of those adverse experiences, it shortens your lifespan by about 20 years. Yes. Hi, baby. So,
This is
yes, I
African
mean,
show, right? So we're good. We embrace families.
yes, mine are around the corner, so you might see them
I
also.
know. Yes.
So, yes, so that was really shocking, especially the part about decreasing your lifespan by 20 years. I mean, wow.
That's
So,
remarkable.
So it's something that's so critical. It's one of those things that it's a root cause. If you don't address it and we just keep addressing, oh, you have diabetes, let me hand you some pills. You have high blood pressure, let's do something. But nobody's talking about what is
What happened to you in the past in your
triggering all of this. Such an important conversation to have because unless we can have this conversation and be aware, then we can't heal from it and we can't live healthier lives and we can't raise our kids and be aware of what we are doing to our own kids because if not, we'll just continue the cycle of what it is that happened to us as we grew up ourselves. So that's why
right.
it's so important for adults to talk about this.
You know what, Dr. H, what really shocked me when I looked at this study is the fact that this was done in the middle class families or individuals.
Exactly.
And immediately I thought to myself, what's going to happen to our
Yes.
African continent where we all know there's so much poverty, which contributes to mental health, which we're going to be talking about that soon here. And I'm just kind of wanting us to explore this part because a lot of times in Africa, we have so many things that are hindering people from accessing mental health. There's so many theories. We both know that there's a lot of beliefs, the myths that if someone is depressed, in fact, some countries, I was in Uganda one time doing some work there. I asked if there was any depression. One guy I spoke to, he asked me, what is that? And now looking at the papers, the research papers, Uganda is one of the countries that doesn't even accept the word depression culturally. That's shocking, right? Places like Nigeria, the same research paper, places like Nigeria, there's so much, people are ostracized, right? A lot of times there's a lot of beliefs, there's a lot of the religion that gets in the play and people cannot access this mental health. And of course, the poverty. So now I'm just wondering what would happen to those ACEs if
Yes.
that study was conducted in Africa. You know what I mean? Because we say the higher your score, which is 3 and above, you have a higher risk of these things. You just mentioned diabetes. What would happen to our African continent when we would do this study? It's shocking, right?
Right. I mean,
Right.
I came across a small study that was done in Nigeria, and they found they had the same results. They did a study in teachers in public and private schools.
Yes.
And they got the same results. I know it was a small sample, like just about 248 people, but of that, most people of those people said, so about 168 of them said, yes, we have had especially emotional abuse and neglect, and also physical.
Yes, and sexual is big in the African
Yes,
continent, and it has so much of, you cannot do this because it's your uncle, it's your father, and
correct.
it's in shame. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
shame protection in Africa. Those are the things, people that are here on watching us, we need to eradicate these things because it is destroying our children and destroying them when they get to adult stage, right? All these things we need to start. And the problem is with the studies we're looking at, Dr. H, even the government, a lot of governments, even the policies, they allocate probably 3 to 5% of funding to do all this mental health work, which is disappointing.
Okay.
So I honestly think there's so much the governments could do and could eradicate or even do more teachings, because when they pump out that money, more research, more campaigns, more awareness, right? It's
Yes,
appalling.
yes, absolutely. But before the government does anything, we can't wait for them. So that's why talking about it openly is the very
Yes,
first step, because the
yes,
very first step is awareness and acceptance, really, that, okay, there is this thing. Yes,
absolutely.
like you said, sexual abuse not talked about is frowned. I mean, you can't even talk about it. If it happened
No,
to you, I mean,
no,
I had a close encounter and I didn't even tell
right.
my parents for years because I started the conversation, you
Yes,
know? So, I mean, and then we have the incidents of, 1 second.
go ahead. This is the fun part of having conversation in this space and just having that interaction with our children, because they need to see these things. So it's okay. We'll,
Yeah.
in future, if you are willing to come join us here, don't worry, just get your babies on your lap and we'll continue the conversations.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry.
No,
Um,
don't apologize.
okay.
Yes,
So I was saying that saying even things like having, which is so prevalent, having house helps, take care of your kids because
yes,
you have to work and you have to do all these things. And the house helps themselves are probably traumatized teenagers.
yeah,
We are
yeah,
not, when I actually read, I was like, oh, wait a second, you're actually right. They've
yes,
been taken out from their homes. They've
yes,
been made to work for somebody else. They're often not treated well. And then you go put them with your kids.
yes, right. You know, so can you imagine that exposure? It's recycling. You take a child who has not been fortunate, bring them to your house in the name of she's gonna be or he's gonna be your house help. He or
Yeah.
she is already traumatized. How is he or she gonna nurture your children? Right?
Possible. But then
Interesting.
there's so much of that, the hands-off parents, like, okay, I'm the big parent. I come in and we say hello, but you have no clue what's going on with your kids the entire day. I mean, really, you don't know. And
Yeah, right. And the one thing,
so don't have a house help, but we need to be more hands-on and know what's going on with our kids. Like actually form a habit of having conversations with your kids. Not
yes,
just hello, how was your day? And that's it.
yes,
Spend time one-on-one with them. I mean,
yes,
that's a cultural thing that has to change because yeah,
yes.
I can speak for myself, but I know lots of people that is like that. It's like the parents are like up here and you are down here, and there is that.
No relationship, basically. And then you wonder why teenage pregnancy. and also the HIV we are struggling with in the African continent. Why it's so rampant? It's because of how parents, unfortunately, because of the culture, you know what, that culture of an elder is here and the child is here. It has caused a lot of distance between a child and a parent. And here's the other thing I realized about the studies I was looking at, Dr. H. Even, you know, ACEs are so dramatic. Like you were saying, one of the ACEs is one of the family members with mental health illness. We both know how even children with cerebral palsy, with psychosis, maybe a family member has schizophrenia. Apparently, a lot of parents or families, they go to an extent of hiding these people because that could even affect maybe the marriage of their daughters. It's that embarrassing. Even things like, you know, in Africa, we're struggling with sickle cell anemia. People with sickle cell anemia, they are ostracized in Africa. As if,
but they're human beings.
Yeah. Albinos, we've seen albinos being killed. That's all increasing ACEs. It's fundamental we have these discussions because a lot of times there's all these myths. Like I said in the beginning here, we're gonna eradicate all these myths because we Africans are the only ones that will actually help ourselves, enlighten our people. And like you said, we cannot wait for our governments. We need to do these things from the grassroots. I'm loving it. So tell me, because also myself, it has changed my practice, how I look at even alcoholism. Actually, let's talk about the mental health illnesses in Africa, because this has a humongous effect. Mental health, Africa basically is one of the highest continents using substance. And here's the thing. Imagine people are hiding behind that substance abuse because they are struggling emotionally. The depression, they are not allowed to express, right? The depression that they are not allowed to feel their emotions because, like I said, countries like Uganda, it's a taboo. Like, I mean, it's a general thing in Africa, but I was shocked when I saw it's even on paper because I honestly asked, do you guys ever get depressed here? And the guy was even saying, what do you mean? What do you mean? I don't understand. What is depression? And this was in 2016.
Wow.
2016, he couldn't articulate what depression was. Yeah, so we need to do more in Africa. And the fact that our childhood, if we're not gonna address them, I mean, our childhood, if we're not gonna address these issues that we went through, how are we gonna help these kids? Right?
Right, you're absolutely right.
How are we gonna help them?
So things like depression, I mean, there are delayed consequences. There are delayed consequences of what happens when you don't address ACEs, basically, because so you have ACEs happen to you, and then you have and then you're more than 12 times more likely to use substance abuse or things like alcohol, drugs, promiscuity to mask that pain, right? Because if you think about it, alcohol, nicotine, alcohol, all of those things are anxiolytics, meaning they help decrease your anxiety level, right? So that's why you will be more likely to use substances like alcohol and drugs because you're trying to mask.
Yes, you're trying to mask,
that pain, right? And then it leads to chronic disease.
Right? It's short-lived because even in return, the same substances used, they also have brain effect and they damage, of course, the changes in the brain. And the ACEs themselves, I was shocked when I was looking at these studies, the changes that occur in our brains when we go through these stages in our childhood and go through the comparison of the scans that were done in these individuals or over the years, people doing the individuals scans, the changes, it's just shocking to see how when you have constant trigger of trauma. I would like us actually, Dr. H, to take us through the flee and the fight concept. I like that response. When you described it, it was just amazing. Can you please take us through it so that people could understand the whole thing, how the brain occurs?
Okay. Give me 1 second.
Go ahead. Guys, I'm just hoping you're going through these discussions and thinking of the questions you're going to ask at the end. Dr. H will be able to answer, and of course, I'll be able to help with some. Go ahead.
So, yes, it's wonderful. Motherhood. Take the children along with you and teach them.
You know what? They have to be here and see us doing this. It's okay. Don't apologize.
Yes, exactly. And that's how they're going to learn. Yeah.
So, yes.
So walk along. So think with me. So if you opened your front door this morning and you saw this huge dog about to attack you, so what are you going to do? Okay. So this is what your body does to help you out. So your body sends messages, and sends messages to your brain, and then there's something called an autonomic nervous system reaction. So what happens is blood flows from the non-essential areas to the parts that you really need, like your hands and your feet, so you're ready to like get out of there, right? And then your pupils get larger, so you can really see your threat very well. And so that's what your body does, gets you ready to race out of there. And that's great and wonderful, right?
Yes.
This is adrenaline, so you can get out of there as fast as you can. So that's great. So, and then you go back to baseline because now you're safe inside your house and no more dog threat. But what if that dog lived in your house 24/7? You can't get away from the dog. No matter where you go, dog in the shape of parents or maybe somebody in school bullying you, whatever the case may be, you can't get away from this persistent threat. So now that's what we call toxic stress, because now your adrenaline and your cortisol levels are at an all-time high, and the body have such high levels of those hormones, because now what happens is you go from the hormones helping you get away from a threat. Now because the hormones are high and always persistent, now it starts to affect the way your brain functions, and it makes changes. It literally will decrease the amount of the amount of neurons you have in your brain. That's what toxic stress will do to you in the frontal area, which you're important for executive functioning, for learning. So can you see the connection?
Absolutely.
The child is abused, the child is harassed, the child doesn't have a support system and adults to protect them. So they're constantly under this threat. Even if you, the parent, doesn't know it's happening to your child, right? The next thing is it starts to make changes in the way they think, in the way they learn. And what happens? Then your child doesn't do well in school. And then you say, what's the matter with you? What's wrong with you? You have no idea what's... So that's why this thing is so critical, because it will make physical changes in the way your kid acts. And therefore adults. So ACEs, is one of the highest reasons for absenteeism, for people not doing well in the workplace. Because think about it, they are not healed from what happened to them as kids. They continue the cycle. They are stressed chronically, so they don't act well. They can't work well. They can't function well. So instead of saying, why is that person acting like that? You can't even hold the job down. The question is, what happened to them?
What happened?
So ask that question about, okay, so how can we changes that will help?
That's okay. You know, it's interesting what Dr. H is mentioning about the childhood and the learning, because in Africa, I know growing up and watching parents, or generally, a lot of times there's a lot of pressure from parents. That I've seen parents, even here in Canada, parents of African descent, mentioning that, you know what, I'm taking my child to a private school. Does she know, or does he know how much I pay there? For him not to perform and bring this 100%, I'm gonna beat him up. I've heard parents saying it in 2020 here in Canada, who are from Africa. So I'm here to enlighten these parents. Dr. H is here to enlighten this approach. It's just not working. You are adding ACEs to your child. First of all, I always preach this: understand your child. You just mentioned learning. What if your child has mathematic learning disorder? What if your child has problem with his eyesight? He goes to class, he can't see. What if your child has hearing problem? He goes to class, he can't understand or hear the class teacher when he's teaching or she's teaching. And here you are as an African parent, you saying to yourself, I'm taking you to private school. You have to pay. Now this love is becoming now. I send you to private school, you come back here and perform and give me 100%. I find we parents, we need to learn compassion towards our children. There's a lot of lack of compassion towards children. Parents are very hard on their children. And there's that they want to perform this way. This was and we can't deny the fact that a lot of times, or in the past, or it's still happening, a lot of times we see a lot of militarian approach in parenting in Africa. It's so harsh and it is increasing. The risk of these ACs. And the problem is parents, the way they look at it. No, you can't say that. You became a doctor, you became a lawyer, you became a teacher, so what's your problem? A lot of times parents, they look at this performance thing as he became this. And I can show off to people, to my friends, to the community I live in. I have a doctor I produced in this parenting. So it worked. That's how people look at it. So I like to ask the question of what happened to this person, right? Once we understand their background, we become more compassionate and with the approach is different. I like that. I like that. Go ahead, sis.
Yeah, so it's absolutely critical that we communicate with our kids, and not just because I was raised that way. Like, you listen to your father, you do exactly what he says. So then what happens to me as an adult? I can't speak up for myself. I don't know how to say no because I've never been able to say no in my life. I've just followed directions. And I mean,
it's, you know what? Go ahead, sis. Go ahead. No, go ahead. You know, that's something that, and we wonder why we see a lot of domestic violence. By the way, people here, you just need to remember this. Domestic violence and the matters involved or that come out of it, when you look at World Health Organization, up to 38% of women, and of course there are men that are killed by women, but this study or this WHO study shows up to 38% of women who are murdered, it's from their spouse, it's from their romantic partner. We wonder why there's this high domestic violence, there's high suicides, there's high depression in Africa, but we don't talk about it.
Yeah,
how are we going to bring you to the top of the mountain and say these things? Yes. How are we going to do it? We need to do this in Africa because we need to enlighten, because you and I, we both know we didn't study this in med school. We didn't study this in residency.
No.
This is a study that came out in 1998 and it's been there. These things have been happening in front of our eyes and it's still happening. They're still happening right today. Yeah. And beyond the borders. In Canada, I've heard that there's parents that will bring a relative from their African country to come and mutilate, genital mutilation. It's still happening in America and Canada and even in Europe.
Wow.
That's trauma, right? That's trauma.
Oh, are you kidding?
That's trauma, right? It's happening in 2020. African parents still do that. They feel that they came to this side of the world and they will not have loose children. That's how they look at it when they do this genital mutilation. We need to do these discussions. I'm so excited with
what does that mean?
Yeah, it's terrible.
Because when you do that to a child, then you tell the child that they're worthless, and then what happens to people who think they're worthless? Well, they act like they're worthless.
Yes.
And then you like, why are they doing that? Well, you reinforce to them over and over that that's who they are, so they believe you. There's this thing called belief. I mean, when you believe something about yourself, it's extremely powerful. It can make you do things that you would not necessarily do because. And the reason lots of African parents was that's what was done to them. So we just continue it.
Yes.
So it's time for us to say no. Yes. Listen, let's talk about this. It's hard. And you know why we didn't learn it in med school and residency is because this is something that involves human behavior. We ourselves. It's hard to talk about. Nobody wants to talk about it. So let's just give you all the pills and medications you need. Let's not talk
Right, right.
about it.
Yes, yes. And you know what? The other thing I find African parents tend to fall into this trap, and I see it. It's global. I see it in Europe. I see it in Northern America. Ourselves here in Africa, African parents tend to associate success with this set of careers choices. You've seen this. It's still happening today.
Yes, of course.
My child goes to one of the private schools here, which, by the way, the homeschooling is working well. He wants to be homeschooled.
Oh,
He,
nice.
he hears of children that talk about how their parents, they expect 100%. I'm talking about, I'm not even talking about Asian parents because they do that a lot too, but I'm talking about our own. African
Yeah.
parents, his friends literally tell him, I get stomach ache. Isn't that anxiety? Headaches. Because he's scared. Why are you
Of
scared?
course.
Why are you scared? No, my mom, my dad just told me that, like I've heard even my colleagues saying that, oh yeah, my daughter will go when they are in their teenage stage, we're taking them back to Africa. That's where they're gonna do medicine. And I'm like, does your doctor want to do medicine? Like, why are we doing this to our children? Like, I really would love African parents to answer this. Why are we choosing careers for our children? Because as parents, can't we? I would like our parents, as parents, to learn mentorship. Because once we mentor our children and ask what they love, what question is the best thing you can ask a child? What do you like? What makes you happy? And you redirect that child towards the gift. A child could be the best in an instrument. And here you are, you want him to be academic. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? And I'm not saying, I don't want you to leave this place saying that doctor says, oh, I shouldn't push. No, we mentor our children. We need to learn, as African parents, we need to learn mentorship and coaching our children. Yes. To be honest, there will be less.
That's right.
Absolutely. Thanks, sis. Go ahead.
No, you're absolutely right. 100%. Because mentorship means we're connecting with the child and we're working alongside them, not telling them. You have to go to. I mean, I have some relatives, their parents made them go to medical school. Now their parents made them go to law school. They just ran away from the thing because they didn't want to do it in the first place. So why don't we? Then you wonder why your kids are not close to you when they grow up, because you've spent half their life telling them what to do. So now they discover that you don't have to tell them what to do. Now they don't want anything to do with you. Or then you're having this frictious this relationship filled with friction. So it's so critical to fill your child's love bank. I'm writing a book about children's love letters, because going at it from the angle of I know what's best for the child. Well, unless you actually know who this child is, you really don't know what's best for the child. Our job as parents is not to tell them what to do, is to walk alongside them and help them develop that gift inside of them so that they can be the best version of themselves, whatever that is. Not what we have decided it is.
Yes. Oh, I love this. I would love to get a copy for sure. I'd love to get a copy for sure, Dr. H. You know what? We're talking about what is it? Parenting, because us raised in that, because a lot of homes in Africa, there was that authoritarian parenting.
Yeah.
Where is versus the authoritative one, which is mostly the healthy one that psychologists are telling us to have that relationship you just mentioned with our children. How do we learn as parents here? How do we learn this? Because, let me rather put it this way. How do we unlearn? Because a lot of people here, they were raised that way. And I guess you probably have answered me already. This is a rhetoric. You said we need to start spending time with our children and getting to know who they are and just do practice. It's hard, but we just have to do it.
Yes, I mean, it's the same way you form relationships. Children are human beings, actually. Yes, they just have had a shorter lifespan, but they are human beings. The same way you try to make friends, you should. I'm not saying be your child. You're not. You're still the parent, but it takes learning the skills of how to communicate with your child and get to know them on a personal level. And you'll be amazed if you even spend 10 minutes, put that device down, look them in the eye and say, how was your day? Hey, what would you like to do? Do something. You don't have to go spend money. It's not about the money. It's the quality of the time you're spending with your child. My 2-year-old takes my phone out of my hands and says, "No phone." No.
It happens all the time here. It happens all the time.
You have to look them in the eye and
Yes.
and communicate with them. Actually spend intentional time with your child. Your child's behavior will improve, because behavior is, when child misbehave, it's a need. They're trying to express to you that they have a need. Now the question is, are you going to address that underlying need they have, or you're just going to react to the behavior and keep pounding on them about why are they so bad and why are they acting like this without something to say, When a child misbehaves, it's an indication that they need they need their love.
They are crying for help.
Bank filled. And now some children want you to spend time with them. Some children want to get a little something from you. But every child wants to know that they are loved, they are accepted, and they are valuable. The same way you as an adult want to be loved, you want to be respected. It's the same thing for a child.
Yes.
You respect your child will comply, but they will not respect you, and you will not have a good relationship with them.
Yep. Yes. You know what? The other blessing I think globally we've been blessed with is this time of COVID-19. I realized that myself, I was working, just started a practice 18 months ago. I'm on the go. And I used to spend time a lot with my son. This time, I'm like, oh my gosh, where did this time go? This child has grown, the things he's telling me. And I was like, Lord, I was going to miss out. And I think, like you said, we need to start discussing things, the emotions, which we don't find a lot in the African families. And I know that, and I'm not trying to say we're not loving. In Africa, we are loving. We are loving people. It's just that this generation, this breed of generation, our children, they don't understand love the way we probably perceived it in the past. You understand what I'm saying? Children, we as African people, we are taking our children and they are mixing with other cultures, and they are seeing how other parents are involved with their children emotionally, not a houseman, as I always hear this word. I don't really like that word, but not a helper or whoever is the one making sure that drops your children at school, picks them up, does the homework to them. You come and you are behind that newspaper, dads or even moms, and then tomorrow becomes a cycle, and you don't know your children, and you don't even know that even the same houseman is actually abusing your child sexually. These things are happening, people. Dr. H, I'm gonna take questions. Actually, time flies. It's already 20 to 8.
Wow.
Yes. So I'm gonna start showing up the questions right now, and let me see on the comments. So there's few comments. Someone says, "Good day to all the Africa." Thank you. Greetings, family. Thanks. I just want to quickly, my girls. Hi, Uche. That's Lulu. She'll be coming on at some point on Comprehend. Oh, I can't speak that French. Thank you so much. Thank you. And Dr. Zungu says, wow, and over a childhood, how many house helps children have in a lifetime? That's true, Doc. That's true. And to even add to that, how many will abuse your child as you continue changing them, right? And the other thing, Dr. H, we also wonder why people go through all these unavailable spouses or abusive spouses. Like you said, if you're abusing your child emotionally or physically, that's what they will believe and attract. Right?
Yes, exactly. And the cycle continues because that's all they know. So
they know. They believe you. They believe
that's why it's so critical to break the cycle and heal from it. Yeah.
Yes. And actually bullies too. Dr. Lulu wrote a bully about bullies that's going to come out soon here, how even the bullies are hurting children. They say,
of course,
people that are hurting will bleed to people that never cut them, right? So maybe you and your spouse are continuously bullying each other, and the kids are watching all that. Because I was shocked when Dr. Lulu asked, how old do you think children start bullying each other? As young as 2 years old. As young as 3-year-olds, they
I
bully.
know.
They're watching it at home.
Yes, children are sponges. Whatever you're doing is what they will take, because
Yeah,
they will do more what you do than what you say.
yeah,
So
that's true, man. Okay, let's see what Chris. Thanks, Chris. Peace, absolutely. And someone is saying we should preach this to all black niggers. Absolutely, we definitely need to do so. Champions Films. We need to start having this conversation. And Dr. Zungu says the first work one had to do in South Africa when translating and adapting MH, that's mental health scales, is to name things correctly. Absolutely. Let's talk about that, Dr. H. You know what Dr. Zungu is saying here? She's South African. She's my new friend here on Instagram. She talks about naming things correctly. As African parents, we need to start naming. If you are mentioning breast, you need to name that's breast. I think we need to stop this. It's sugar, it's sweet,
because
it's
the
gold.
children need to know. Yes. So
You understand?
you're
It's
right.
genital system in the African, and I think it's not even about parents are not really wanting to teach their children. It also comes from this cultural thing that there's respect, there's names. You can't. I think this is another thing that is perpetrating sexual abuse in our African place. In the African continent, because a child would say, "Oh, someone touched me," or touched my. Can't even say that he was touched in the vagina or in the penile area, because it's reality. A lot
The
of people
shame.
were
Yeah.
molested. Yes, we have people that are doing
Yes.
well in their careers, but they are broken inside because they were either molested. These people absolutely high aces, and these people are living in shame, and you wonder why they're alcoholics, and we always wonder why these people. He's a CEO of this
Yeah.
big company. Why is he on number 3 wife? He's broken. He's broken. He's
Yes.
he's hurting. He's hurting. We need to start talking about vulnerability in our home, so that boys, even the concept of saying boys should
Yes.
not
Yeah.
cry.
It's a hard.
Take us through that, Dr. H. Boys should not cry. I'm allergic to that statement. I don't want to hear.
That's untrue. Yeah.
I don't want to hear that statement. Boys shouldn't cry. Boys have the same emotions as girls. We need
Yes.
to start discussing these things in our families. Dr. Gungu
Absolutely.
also says there is always a myth that African people don't know what is depression, like etc. They do it. Sorry, they do if you know the correct words to use to ask the. Absolutely. Thank you so much,
Yes.
Doc. I think again, it's also doing these campaigns and educating our people what to look for, the symptoms, right? Because, like I said,
Yes.
in Uganda, culturally, it's not acceptable. You cannot use that word. So people are not allowed to feel how they feel, and it's shamed. And a lot of times, I see a lot of you are weak if you are feeling these emotions. You know
Yes.
what I'm talking about, Doc. Come on, you know.
Oh, I know.
And we see unemployment in Africa. Young people are committing suicide because they are unable to cope with the social, environment they are in. There's wars in Africa. That's trauma. That's exactly the ACEs you just
Yes.
mentioned. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. I mean, the inability to share, to feel your feelings,
yeah.
that alone will set your body on high alert all the time.
All the
And there
time.
is absolutely no way you can do anything. I mean, you can try and put a good face on it, but it will show up in the way you walk. You will show up in the way you interact with others.
Yeah,
So symptoms like, okay, I don't want to hang around people. I don't complete my work well. Then you lose the job. You see, all of these things have consequences. I don't feel good about myself, so I don't do well in school, and then I fail out of school, and then I can't get a job, and then I can't take care of myself, and then I live in poverty, and then I hurt myself, or I hurt the people around me. It's like
okay.
it just goes
You
on
end
and
up
on.
in jail.
So
Yes, and then they end up in jail. That's very sad. And the thing is also, I wish we could also have these resources in Africa, which I think it's a work in progress. We need to find ways of helping children that are unable to perform academically. How many, you and I, we both know, I think back now that I'm a doctor, I think back
yeah,
of children whom I think maybe they had ADHD, growing up. These children maybe were autistic. These children probably had some, like all these disorders. You know what I mean? They dropped out of school. They dropped out of school because no one knew, no one understood what they were going through. So I honestly think here in Canada, they've started they've started introducing learning ACEs when kids start school. I think that's the best.
Yeah.
In fact, let me not say that. We are introducing them even in pregnancy. We are assessing prenatal.
Yes, because that's where it's
that's where it starts.
Yes,
So
there's something called epigenetics where trauma will make changes to your genes and how your genes are expressed. And you can carry that and you can transfer those genes to generations. So the pregnant woman who's been bitten by her whoever her partner is not well taken care of, doesn't have good pre-stress, well, her genes changes will happen in her genes. She will pass all those genes to that child. That child will come out, probably not live in a good environment, will not do well in school, and the cycle continues. So this thing is so critical. It's like we have to talk about the root causes, not just the superficial layers. It's hard, but we have to do it. And that's the only way to find freedom. And the good news is you can find healing from ACEs. It's not, you're not stuck with the brain you have.
I love that. Yes.
If you've had trauma, you can heal. So start with you being open to talking about it and being aware of it and then working on it. Yeah.
Yes. I just got to know recently, in the recent years, the concept of neuroplasticity, that our brains, they can, I love that concept, that our brain neurons, I don't want people to leave here saying, oh, then I'm done. This happened to me, and I think Dr. H, as she's saying, this is actually, it's possible to reverse this. That's with the acceptance that this happened to me.
Yeah.
It was not my fault. And probably your parents did what they knew. You understand? I think that's the starting point. You need to start probably forgiving. And when you forgive a person, it doesn't mean they were right. I think that's where we start healing. Healing starts with accepting this happened to me, and then talking about it, right?
Yes. Because and knowing that, I mean, you didn't cause it, right?
You didn't cause yes, because there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of guilt, and actually that's also part of depression. You know, the symptoms of depression. There's guilt there, there's shame, there's the sadness. And then the other thing, before I forget, Dr. H, I would like...
When you were a child. And
yes. I would like us to improve as African parents. We need to start using words that encourage our children. I know that a lot of times, this child is bad. I think we need to stop using these BAD words. Oh, you are crazy. Like all these words, like you said, a child follows that. They become what you are saying to them.
Yes.
We need to start with affirmations for our children. Something I did on my child's mirror, I always say, before you go to school, go through your affirmations. You know that I'm smart. I make others laugh. Like, you come up with all these things that your child is good at. We need to start doing these things because you set your child's day. And that's how you perform, right?
That's exactly right.
Yes. And then the other thing I find we should probably improve on as parents is when your child comes back from school, and I think it's because of what we always had. There's a lot of, how was it today? And then once your child tells you, oh, what was your favorite day? Oh, favorite subject. When your child tells you it was phys ed, some parents go, not math. You know what I mean? they want to hear the subject that makes sense to them.
Yes.
And I think we need to start embracing these things that, that was her favorite time. If it was phys ed, and that's the opportunity for you to know, why is my child enjoying more recess? What is it? Maybe she has some anxiety in class.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like you said. So we could improve in the way we talk and the words we choose. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's so important for, things like, why do they enjoy recess? Recess increases oxygen flow to your brain, which helps your brain work better, which heals your brain. So let her enjoy recess.
It's good. So we need recess and we need this phys ed. And also the concept of dismissing children. When your child, you ask, what do you want to be in adulthood? Let's embrace the stages where they at and embrace what they are. You know, when your child tells you, I want to be a firefighter, I want to be a teacher, it's okay. She could be the best firefighter. She could be the best teacher in your province, guys.
Exactly.
Embracing our children. And maybe next year she might want to be a nurse. We need to start embracing these things, because that's when they can share bigger things. If you told them, you dismissed them when they told you this little, they will not share their big issues. I mean, as life continues, there's a lot of challenges. So we need to start creating that environment and that the communication lines between our children and us. I'm loving this. Time is going. We only have 2 minutes.
Yes, it's so critical to speak life to your children, because words are literally alive and they are things. Like Dr. Nati said, you will become what you say. So I actually literally stop parents in my office when they say, "You crazy boy." I'm like, do not call my friend crazy. Do you want him to really become crazy? Because I will remind you how you were calling him that. So please speak life to your kids. Tell them that they are loved.
Yes.
Tell them that if they do something and they come show you, I mean, point it and tell them, okay, wow, I love the effort you put towards this. It doesn't mean if something is not good, you just praise them. No, you look at their efforts. Like, for example, when my kids are not fighting, I know kids fight. So when they are not, I tell them, oh, wow, I love the way you talked to your brother just now. That was so good. So you lift them up when they're doing good, and they'll be more likely to keep doing it.
Oh my God.
We're waiting till they do something bad. They're like, oh, you bad person, you bad person. But then when they were doing something good, that it was good. So build up your kids. They're human beings, just like you want to be built up. Maybe you weren't built up, but you can change that starting today. All you have to do is say, this didn't happen to me when I was a kid. I was constantly put down. And recognize that you're doing the same thing to your kid. And how do you change? You change by being aware of it. Good. I'm aware of it. Okay. And you forgive yourself for doing it to your kid. But then what do? You have to learn skills to be able, like what we are
we need to learn
discussing right now. And good, point it out to them. More likely to continue to do that. So it's just small things like that help. I mean, there are courses Dr. Nati has courses. She talks, we talk all the time about stuff. So it's just those small things. And you too, it starts with us actually. Before we can even speak well to our kids, we have to start speaking well to ourselves. It's called mirror work. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, I am beautiful, I'm valuable, I am a person of excellence.
Titties, I'm reminded of titties.
Change the way, and it will change the way you relate to your kids.
Yes.
It starts with us. We have to do the work in ourselves. So I realized that I was expecting my kids to be perfect because I was expected to always do the right thing. Wow. And when I realized that, then I was able to change it. And I always ask for redos. It's okay to tell your kid, can we do that again? And go through. If you did something and you screamed at them, say, okay, you know what? And mommy is so sorry. Can we do that again? And speak in a calmer voice. Keep doing that with yourself. Your children will learn the same thing and will do that. So
I love it. I love self-love, sis, and also the compassion on ourselves. And also there's a lot of, even in general, not even African parents, there's a lot of going in front of the mirror, in front of your 3-year-old or 4-year-old, you start bashing yourself, how fat you look, how ugly you look. And then you wonder, I've seen the kids I work with when I do self-esteem coaching, the parent is like, I'm worried about my daughter. She has low self-esteem. And then I go, I'll talk to your daughter at some point. Yeah. I usually want at least 2 sessions with the parent because I want to get to know her. Because a lot of times our children become what we are. Like you are just saying, they are mirrors, right? So if you are also yourself, you are struggling, and people need to understand this. Adults need to understand that there's adults that have low self-esteem. Like we just mentioned, ACEs, they affect your self-esteem, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So, like you wonder then, and then people start saying, my child, she's so withdrawn, she doesn't want to. But even yourself, look at how even yourself, you tolerate things that are unhealthy for yourself. Does your child listen to you being disrespected by your spouse, disrespected by your friends? At work, do you feel that you are valued? Do you feel yourself that I've been working here for 2 years, people are getting raises, and I think I deserve it? Are you able to speak up for yourself?
That's right.
That's important. That's fundamental. And you cannot expect your child to be vocal if you cannot even yourself help yourself, right?
Of course not. You can't give anybody what you don't have.
We don't have. Right, right. You know what? I recently introduced to our family, because we have a doctor, we have a dentist. Now I said, why don't we have a psychologist? We need to have a psychologist, because in Africa, we need to start normalizing needing help when we are stuck. Psychologists, counselors, social workers are there to help us feel or unstuck ourselves with, because life happens. There's so much stress we live with. So I was so happy that we all embraced it, and our child will have access to this number, so that when he feels like he wants to talk, or he wants to go vent, or he can't do it with us, we're hoping he could do that with us as we are building our relationship. But we need, as African parents, start normalizing mental health support. I really like that.
I have a therapist. I talk to one every week.
Good for you.
Every week.
It's fundamental. It's fundamental. We need to start normalizing it, because once we do, our children will also see a need. And because I find, even with my patients, when I ask about the history of their depression, you find that, or anxiety, they were depressed since they were 8. And I'm talking about people that are in their 40s, right?
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Oh, this is wonderful. Let me go back to
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. So other people, hi, babes. There's a friend who's saying hi, Mauna. And then someone is in West Papua, Melanesia. Thank you so much. JP says we are together. And then Dr. Zungu says we need a special session about how parents live their life ambitions through their kids and how that affects children. Yes, Doc.
That's exactly what we're talking about.
We need to stop dreaming. And you know what? I find sometimes it's all about the show off. A lot of times, we as an African continent, people of Africa, we love, like, we are very proud people. I love being African. We love ambition. We love success. We love, and it's beautiful. I love that about us. But there's a thin line. We need to stop and think and let our children do it. Right? I just love that. Love that, Dr. True. Because a lot of times, some parents, it's all about how these children will make them feel in the society, or how they will, a lot of times, a lot of parents like, I have a doctor, a lawyer, and an accountant. It's all about that. And they're being proud, but it can be very hard on kids' emotions, right?
Yes, and it can affect everything they do going forward, because then they feel like they're not valuable, and then they don't do anything well. And then we say, why are you doing this?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. And then we have Kingsley said, Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, this was lovely. I can't wait to bring you back here. We'll talk more.
I had a good time. Thank you.
I'm so appreciative. Thank you so much, guys. We have come to the end of our session. I really thank you so much for taking time, because it's weekend, but you felt you wanted to be here. I really appreciate it. I cannot take this for granted. We're going to be bringing different speakers here. You might see Dr. H again. She's such a wonderful, with so much wealth. And if you want to follow her page, she just goes by her name, Dr. Okehe. If you probably see it on the stage here. Just go and follow her work. She's doing an amazing work, because we need all these kids. I love your mission of looking after these children that tend to be isolated. No one really wants to not to grow with their own biological parents. But, I'm so grateful you're doing this type of work. And guys, thank you again. See you next week.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you, everyone.
I can see.